Welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: Japan-China tensions rise amid fighter jet incident, Benin coup thwarted, UK and Norway form naval alliance to look for Russian subs, China trade surplus tops $1 trillion, and robot survives months in never-seen Antarctic cavity. Starting with politics, Benin coup thwarted. Hours after a group of soldiers declared a takeover on national television, the government said it had defeated the coup attempt after help from neighboring Nigeria, which said its fighter jets had briefly taken over Benin airspace. There have been a series of coups in West Africa before the latest attempt in Benin, heightening security fears for the region. Point: Czech president agrees to appoint election winner Andrej Babiš as PM. 2 months after parliamentary elections, President Pavel has agreed to appoint right-wing populist election winner and billionaire Andrej Babiš as Prime Minister, clearing the way for a new government. The president had insisted Babiš first publicly clarify how he planned to resolve a potential conflict of interest as a politician and owner of a major business empire with more than 250 companies that benefit from EU subsidies. Point: Protests in Bulgaria, government withdraws draft budget. 1 month before the introduction of the euro, Bulgaria's pro-Western government has withdrawn its controversial draft budget for 2026, following a demonstration by tens of thousands in the capital Sofia. Prime Minister Sheljaskov said the government wanted to make concessions and submit new proposals by the end of the year. One point of criticism is the planned increase in social security and pension contributions by 2 percentage points. Putin pledges uninterrupted fuel shipment to India amid US sanctions. At their New Delhi summit, both leaders agreed to reshape defense ties toward joint research and production, aligning with India's push for self-reliance. The meeting underscored India's balancing act, maintaining its partnership with Moscow while managing intense US pressure. Cameroonian opposition figure dies in detention. Aniset Ekane has died in detention, cause unknown, 5 weeks after he was arrested, his lawyers and party said. Ekane, 74, was among the leaders of an opposition coalition who endorsed Issa Chiroma Bakary in October's presidential election. Bakary says he was the rightful winner of the poll, officially won by 92-year-old incumbent Paul Biya. Bakary has since fled to the Gambia. No official cause of Ekane's death has been announced. His party has accused the authorities of denying him access to his medication, a charge the government has denied. Moving to stories in conflict, Japan-China tensions rise amid fighter jet incident. A Chinese military aircraft allegedly twice locked fire control radar onto Japanese fighter jets as tensions between the two countries rise. Japan protested what it called the dangerous and extremely regrettable behavior of the Chinese JR-15 fighter jets over international waters southeast of Okinawa's main island. Yemen civil war could escalate again. A separatist group backed by the United Arab Emirates has taken control of a large oil-rich province in southern Yemen. The group says it acted to restore security, but analysts see the move as part of its push to form an independent southern state. The shift also highlights growing competition between the UAE and Saudi Arabia. UK and Norway form naval alliance to look for Russian submarines. The move responds to a 30% rise in Russian vessels near UK waters and threats to critical infrastructure. The joint fleet, including at least 13 anti-submarine ships, UK-built Type 26 frigates, and advanced weapons including Norwegian naval strike missiles, will search for Russian submarines in the North Atlantic, protecting undersea cables and pipelines. Peace deal between DR Congo and Rwanda. The US hosted DR Congo's President Tshisekedi and Rwanda's Kagame for a peace deal aimed at ending the M23-driven conflict in eastern DR Congo. President Trump said the deal opened the door for major US investment in the region's vast mineral reserves. Analysts noted that the M23 still controls major cities and no ceasefire exists. Russia terminates military agreements with Portugal, France, and Canada. The agreements were signed during a period of improved relations between Russia and the West following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The Canada Agreement came just weeks after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, which effectively signaled the end of the Cold War. Now for the latest in economic news. LMICs face largest external debt outflows in 50 years. Low- and middle-income countries paid out $741 billion more in principal and interest on their external debt between 2022 and 2024 than they received in new financing. The World Bank said that the growth of LMIC's external debt stock slowed significantly in 2024, increasing 1.1% to $8.9 trillion. China is the largest debtor country, accounting for 30.1% of LMIC's interest payments. Record billionaire inheritances. 91 people became billionaires through inheritance, receiving $298 billion in the past 12 months. This is a more than one-third increase from last year and is part of a growing wealth transfer expected to reach at least $5.9 trillion over the next 15 years, mostly from the US, India, France, Germany, and Switzerland. Eurozone business activity expands at fastest in 30 months. A robust service sector more than offset manufacturing weakness, marking its sixth consecutive monthly increase. Mali recovers $1.2 billion in arrears from miners under new code. It's one of the country's biggest ever clawbacks from its lucrative mining sector. The military-led government launched an audit of the sector in early 2023 and uncovered large shortfalls, paving the way for a new mining code that raises royalties, boosts the state's ownership in mining companies, and scraps stability clauses. China trade surplus tops $1 trillion for first time on non-US growth. Manufacturers seeking to avoid US tariffs shipped more to non-US markets in November, with exports to Europe, Australia, and Southeast Asia rising, while shipments to the US dropped by close to one-third from the same month a year before. Chinese exports overall grew 5.9% year-on-year in November, a reversal from October's 1.1% contraction, while imports were up 1.9% compared with a 1.0% uptick in October. Now for news in development. Apple refuses India's cybersecurity app. India has ordered phone makers to preload a government-backed cybersecurity app on all devices and prevent users from disabling it. Apple plans to refuse because the app tracks and blocks lost or stolen phones, which could enable broader surveillance. Uganda stops granting asylum status for Eritreans, Somalis, and Ethiopians. The government said the decision was due to severe funding shortfalls, partly due to US and UK aid cuts, and would only affect those countries not experiencing war. Uganda hosts nearly 2 million refugees, the largest population in Africa, but funding has decreased from $240 million annually to just $18 million this year. US and EU critical minerals project could displace thousands in DR Congo. The US-EU-backed Lobito Corridor project could displace up to 6,500 people in Kolwezi, DRC, as authorities rehabilitate the Benguela Railway to boost exports of critical minerals like cobalt and copper. Satellite analysis suggests about 1,200 buildings lie within the contested railway buffer zone. The EU and project developers say impact assessments and resettlement plans are ongoing. EU weakens corporate sustainability laws. After pressure from companies and governments, including the US and Qatar, the changes would weaken rules for a majority of businesses now covered, and were in response to criticism that regulation hindered competitiveness with foreign rivals. The change means only companies with more than 1,000 employees and annual net turnover exceeding $524 million will be required to disclose details of their environmental and social impact, down from about companies with more than 250 employees now. surveillance concerns as UK councils deploy drones. Over 60 UK local councils have hired certified drone operators, with some planning to use drones to combat antisocial behaviour and supplement police work, with the technology operating alongside facial recognition-equipped CCTV systems. While critics say drones can serve legitimate purposes like flood monitoring and land surveys, local authorities lack clear policies on when and how drones can be deployed. Finally, our social news. Germany approves voluntary military service for 18-year-olds. Starting in 2026 as part of efforts to strengthen national defense after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the plan may later expand to compulsory service and will include medical examinations starting in 2027. It has sparked youth protests and forms part of broader moves to rebuild the German armed forces. US focus on fentanyl helped fuel cocaine trade resurgence in Ecuador. Cocaine traffickers, including Mexican cartels, Colombian groups, and local gangs, are expanding rapidly in Ecuador, as security forces say they are outmatched as criminal groups gain money, weapons, and influence across the country. High levels of forever chemical found in Euro cereal products. Breakfast cereals showed contamination levels 100 times higher than in tap water. Trifluoroacetic acid, TFA, formed when PFAS pesticides break down in soil, was detected in more than 80% of samples and is linked to reproductive and thyroid harm. Point. Milky Way-like galaxy from 12 billion years ago. Indian astronomers have discovered a massive spiral galaxy named Alaknanda from 12 billion years ago, when the universe was only 1.5 billion years old. Using the James Webb Space Telescope, they observed a fully formed disk with symmetrical spiral arms and clusters of stars, challenging theories that early galaxies were small and chaotic. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.